demographically, the older population is getting bigger. That will mean that a lot of clients will be requiring specialist advice to cater with the needs of an ever-ageing population. SOLLA is the Society of Later Life Advisers. It's a not-for-profit organisation which is there to promote financial awareness of issues that people face in later life. The accreditation is awarded to people who can prove that they have the necessary soft skills and communication skills to be able to advise elderly clients and their families. I wanted to be an advisory firm that could offer something different. We often find ourselves with later life issues not just talking to people who are in later life. It is actually equally important for us to speak to what is deemed to be the sandwich generation. Clients who have concerns about elderly parents, whilst also at the same time having concerns about bringing up the children. Later life advice and conversations with clients can be very, very difficult because people will plan for births, deaths, marriages, pensions, retirement, but still there seems to be a real reticence to speak about later life advice, both from the families who don't wish to bring up the subject with elderly relatives and with elderly relatives who don't wish to talk about it with their families. So it can be very difficult. And that is one of our roles as SOLLA advisors, is to bring families together and give them the reassurance and to try and help and educate them as to the options which are available to them. People think later life advice might just be primarily about care funding, and that's not necessarily so. We have one concern with elderly relatives, which is I don't want to spend all of my money on care fees and nursing fees because I've worked my whole life to build up this money and I want to pass this on to my children as much as possible. And so we also have the sandwich generation who obviously want to see elderly relatives well looked after and nursing fees and care fees catered for, but they're also concerned about intergenerational wealth transfers. A big part of a SOLLA advisor's role is actually to look at wills, lasting powers of attorney and enduring powers of attorney. And I think that's the basic starting point when we have any conversation with a client, is have you got the basic instruments in place before we can then start to plan anything else. One of the common questions we get asked about dealing with intergenerational wealth is who can we speak to? That will very much depend on the capacity of the elderly relative. If they have full capacity, they may not wish their children to be there. However, we would still think it very important that they should have other members of the family privy to these conversations. Equally, we might be dealing with an elderly relative who doesn't have mental capacity, in which case then it becomes really important that there's a lasting power of attorney in place that will allow us to still deal with their financial matters, but dealing with the attorneys. Lots of our clients, especially elderly ones, are asset rich and cash poor, and they wish to know if we can help them with their inheritance tax planning. And of course, this is something which is actually fundamental in any financial planning that we do. People are very concerned about the cost of care in the UK. So one of our roles as SOLLA representatives is to educate, is to say, look, you do have choices. And the best thing to do is to start talking about it in advance so that if a particular scenario does come around, you know what your options are and you're not forced into a corner. It's actually never too late to approach a SOLLA member such as myself for advice. Even if you have a relative who's in care, you may not be claiming the relevant benefits. You may not know about the different options as to how the care can be funded. There's a very big difference between social care and NHS options, and a lot of people still don't know the difference between the two. People don't like talking about money within families. They can find it very difficult. But we really would encourage older clients to start involving the families a little bit more in financial decisions. It will make life a lot easier moving forward. And also for children not to be shy and to start asking questions of the parents. You know, you have made your will, you have done your lasting powers of attorney. Do you have any specific wishes about later life care? What should we be talking about now? And it doesn't have to be a morose conversation, but it is a conversation that you need to have. This is where a SOLLA member can help, because we do know families can't talk to each other, and sometimes we can act as a good bridge. So we would encourage everybody, if they're not talking to me, to at least start talking within the family.